Hey everybody, I am AMS, or Aiden, whichever you prefer to call me. This is just going to be a very short video build guide of the Knave Talon-fed slide prime pistol. You can see I have laid out here all of the printed parts and all of the hardware. So let's just get right into the build. We're going to start by taking a little bit of super glue, our ball detent, and we're just going to put a bit of glue onto that detent. Grab our receiver, and you can see down in there, that hole. We're just going to pop our detent down in there and press it on back so that super glue seats in there as we're doing the rest of the build. Next, we're going to grab our trigger and one 2x30mm pin and drop the trigger down in there like so. Want to make sure that hole lines up right there, and then you will drop your pin in and press that into place. I find it helpful to use sometimes an Allen wrench or even a pair of pliers to press that in. And now we have our trigger pinned in place. Next up, we're going to take our catch spring. We're going to drop it into this slot here. Follow that up with our catch. Make sure it is pointed in the correct direction with the slope forwards. We're going to drop that in, slightly depress it with your thumb, and then drop your sear in behind it. And you may need to persuade the sear to go into place just a little bit, and that should line up with that hole there. I can't quite get it on camera. But then you're going to take another 2x30mm pin, drop it into place, and press that in. Just like so, and now you have a working trigger group. So now we're going to take our barrel shroud piece, and onto the front we're going to place our muzzle. It's just going to slide on, and then we'll put one M3x8 screw into either side, and this build uses only M3x8 screws, so pretty easy on the sourcing there. You can just buy a pack. It only uses 14, so I mean you can buy a 20 pack or a 50 pack or however many pack off Amazon and just be set. You don't have to worry about getting an assortment or anything if you were self-sourcing the parts, which is not necessary because there will be hardware kits available right now, as far as I know, only on Bearsware's website. But we're going to go and screw our muzzle in place just like that. Then you're going to grab your left rail, and you want your rails to line up the same way that they would on the receiver. So they both need to be pointed down, if that makes sense. So we're going to drop our rails into place like so. We're just going to slide in. And then we are going to grab our priming bar, and you're going to slide that in at an angle and then pull it through. And then you can set that to the side for a second because we're going to grab our pusher, and I ran out of filament halfway through here, that's why it's a different color. But I'm going to put our 012 O-ring on there, and then one of our larger plunger O-rings on the groove in the back here. We're going to hold this by our priming bar so it's fully exposed, and we will slot it into the top of the plunger, not the plunger, the pusher. Plunger is the thing that goes back and forth. So then we're going to put another screw into the top here. Assuming I don't drop it, we're going to put a screw into the top here and tighten that all the way down. Be sure not to over tighten it though. There's no nuts or heat sets in this build, so just be careful not to over tighten anything. I'll probably be working on a higher and lower hardware version in the future, one that uses heat sets and then one that just uses printed connectors. But for now, this is kind of the standard version. So now that we've got that, we're just going to prepare our plunger tube really quickly. So I'm going to put a bit of lubricant in on either end, which I recommend something thinner like slug slime, or I think Moose's Moose Spit, something like that. You know, the thinner stuff that you get in the milliliter bottles. I just find it works a little bit better, but this is what I have on hand, so I want to put that in there like that. Slide the whole thing forward and drop the assembly in just like so. So now this should be able to come back and forth like that, nice and easy. Then we're going to take our slide and we're going to just slide that all over the top. You may find it helpful to lubricate the track that it rides on if it's a little bit stiff. Generally, if your printer has good tolerances, that won't be much of an issue, but which my printer does have some pretty good tolerances, but I find that lubricating it just makes it a little bit smoother, which can just give you a little bit nicer user experience. You really don't need much, just some on some of the smaller contact points as you slide that on, and it makes it a lot nicer. So we're going to slide that all the way forward, and that's going to get 2 M3x8s on... I just keep dropping screws. That's going to get 2 M3x8s on both sides of our slide, and those are going to screw into the priming bar. And I know that the priming bar seems a bit loose in its channel. That is intentional. So if you go to modify the step files, don't make the channel that it rides in tighter. That's intentional so that it can have enough free room to wiggle as you move the slide forward and back. It's going to very, very, very slightly flex up and down. Which is completely normal, and I mean, you're not going to see it, but yeah. So, taking a hot minute. How's everybody's day going? You know, all that jazz. You know, this is going a lot smoother than the initial build guide that I put together for this thing. On the old file versions. This is all updated files, so this should all look completely identical with your release version of the blaster that you download from printables. We're going to take our plunger, put on an O-ring, and we're going to drop that into the back here, depress our trigger, and slide it on in. I'm going to follow that up with our spring. I'm using a 9 kilogram right here. And then you're going to align this with the inside of your spring there, and you're going to push it in and down like that. Slide your back cap over it. I forgot this. This is important. Don't forget this. Actually, I forgot this on the last build guide too, until like halfway through again. You need a screw going into either side of the receiver, locking your barrel shroud into place. In case you couldn't tell, I don't really rehearse my videos. I just kind of do it as it happens. But that's going to get one screw on either side that will lock that into place. And then now that we've got our back cap on, we're going to put 2 screws into that so we can hold that onto the back of our receiver. We're fine. We're doing good. We're doing real good here. Hooray. Which you might find it somewhat helpful to kind of slightly remount the holes on the back there in case they didn't print super cleanly because whatever reason. This is kind of some yucky PLA that doesn't like to print absolutely spectacularly. But that's besides the point. That's not exactly integral to the build guide here. Then we're going to take our grip, slide it on like that, and then into the bottom of our grip is going to go 2 M3x8 screws into those holes. You do want a longer driver just so you can reach all the way down in there. This isn't really going to work with a lot of your shorter 1.5 inch or 2 inch drivers. You do need a longer one. Preferably the T-handle. I feel like it makes it a lot easier. But obviously that's personal preference, to each their own, all that jazz. Anyways, you're just going to tighten those screws down until you feel a fair amount of resistance. Again, there's no nuts or heat sets in this version, so just don't over tighten them. You're not really going to have to take the grip off at all for any sort of maintenance or anything unless you're just changing parts, or I guess if somehow you break the grip and you need to reprint it. So just, you know, be cautious with how tight you drive those. Last, we're going to take our barrel, slide that into the front, like so. And we'll drop one M3x8 screw into the bottom here and tighten that down. This is going to tighten on your barrel physically, so I would recommend not using a barrel that you typically put in a blaster where you can see the barrel, because it will put some very slight marring on it. And I would also recommend, if you take the barrel out frequently, to put it back in roughly the same orientation, because if you have a lot of marring all around the barrel, it's going to make insertion and removal difficult in the future. But see it catches, prime it forward. Gets us an air seal. You might have to work that trigger a little bit at first to get your catch to ride smooth. You might even feel the need to open it back up and lubricate that catch a bit in the front so that it slides smoothly. This one I didn't lubricate and I can kind of feel it, so you may find that necessary, but you see air seal gets is decent. And I guess I'll shoot a couple darts through it here just to prove that it works. Got 2 worker bamboos. And yep. That's all there is to it. It's a very, very quick and simple build. I didn't edit the video at all, but it doesn't feel like it took that long. And yeah, that's Knave. Thank you for watching, and if you decided to build one, just thank you for the support. Bye bye.